Welcome back to Othello. We're going to be picking up with Act 3, and we'll be spending most of this fairly short lecture on just Act 3, Scene 3, which is really the centerpiece of this play. And if you'd like to look at Scene 3 now, we're just really going to start there. What happens in the first two scenes is basically just Cassio playing under Desdemona's window and Othello receiving letters from Venice. It's not that it's not important, but it's not as important as what follows. Cassio, in the beginning of Scene 3, something to bear in mind in Scene 3, what happens is, first of all, we see Iago's techniques. We found out that what he intended to do was poison Othello with jealousy. We find out in this how he proceeds to do that, and it's very clever. He uses the Socratic technique of asking a lot of questions and making Othello fill in the answers. We see a lot of stuff having to do with cultural clash. The fact that Othello wants very much to be accepted by the Venetians as one of them, but that in a sense he fears being like the enemies, the Turks. The understanding between Moor and Turk really wasn't very good, so what Othello actually is and what his cultural background originally was is a little bit left up to, it's sort of fuzzy. We also get to see Desdemona's flaw. One of them is that she just takes too much on herself. She promises Cassio that she will definitely get him his job back. "Do not doubt, Cassio, but I will have my lord and you again as friendly as you were." And Cassio says, "Well, don't worry about it. Do your best, but really don't." He's not expecting much of anything. And Desdemona insists she can do this. "Do not doubt that, before Emilia here, I give thee warrant of thy place. Assure thee, if I do vow a friendship, I'll perform it to the last article. My lord shall never rest. I'll watch him tame, and talk him out of patience. His bed shall seem a school, his board a shrift. I'll intermingle everything he does with Cassio's suit. Therefore be merry, Cassio, for thy solicitor shall rather die than give thy cause away." And she says she'd rather die than not help Cassio. And unfortunately, that's got that ominous little prickle, something like a curse. And also, you see the extent of her loyalty. If she vows a friendship, she's really your friend for life. And that she really won't let up on Othello. That she's going to bug him relentlessly until he gives in. And she starts right away. Meanwhile, Iago has already started planting the seed. "Was not that Cassio parted from my wife?" "Cassio, my lord? No, sure, I cannot think it, that he would steal away so guilty-like, seeing your coming." "I do believe 'twas he." "No, oh, no, I couldn't be Cassio. He looks so guilty," hints Iago. And Desdemona says, "No, it was Cassio." "Good my lord, if I have any grace or power to move you, his present reconciliation take. For if he be not one that truly loves you, that errs in ignorance and not in cunning, I have no judgment in an honest face. I prithee call him back." "Went he hence now?" "Yes, faith, so humbled that he hath left part of his grief with me to suffer with him. Good love, call him back." "Not now, sweet Desdemona, some other time." "But shall it be shortly?" "The sooner, sweet, for you." "Shall it be tonight at supper?" "No, not tonight." "Tomorrow dinner, then?" "I shall not dine at home. I meet the captains at the citadel." "Why, then, tomorrow night, or Tuesday morn, or Tuesday noon, or night, or Wednesday morn. I prithee name the time, but let it not exceed 3 days. In faith, he's penitent. And yet his trespass in our common reasons say that they say the war must make example out of her best is almost not a fault to incur a private check. When shall he come? Tell me, Othello. I wonder in my soul what will you ask me that I should deny and thus stand mammering on. What? Michael Cassio, that came a-wooing with you, and so many a time when I have spoken of you disparagingly hath ta'en your part, to have so much to do to bring him in? By Our Lady, I could do much. Prithee, no more. Let him come when he will, I will deny thee nothing. So she bugs him. And she also lets slip, well, Cassio used to come with you when you were wooing me all the time. And that's going to leave her open and vulnerable as well. And Othello says, yes. He never says that he's convinced that it's a good idea. He just says, yes, all right, I can't deny you anything. But Desdemona says, no, I'm not asking you to do a favor. This is asking you to do something good for yourself. This is like telling you to go to the dentist or take your multivites. Why, this is not a boon. 'Tis as I should entreat you wear your gloves, or feed on nourishing dishes, or keep you warm, or sue to you to do a peculiar profit to your own person. No, when I have a suit wherein I mean to touch your love indeed, it shall be full of poise and difficult weight, and fearful to be granted. I will deny thee nothing. Whereon I do beseech thee, grant me this, to leave me but a little to myself. Shall I deny you? No. Farewell, my lord. So he says, okay, all right, yes, I'll deny you nothing, but I'd like some space. I'd like to be alone. And she graciously accepts that. She says, of course, anything you want. And she leaves. Now, when Othello says goodbye to her, he looks at her and says, excellent wretch, perdition catch my soul, but I do love thee. And when I love thee not, chaos is come again. May I be damned if I don't love you. And if I ever love you not, it's going to be the end of the world. That's where he starts. By the end of this, he's screaming, I'll chop her into messes. And it's Iago who pushes him in that direction. And also, when it happens, perdition will catch his soul if he doesn't love her. And that is exactly what happens. Now, Iago doesn't come straight forward and say, Cassio's fooling around with your wife. That wouldn't work. Instead, he asks a series of questions. My noble lord, what dost thou say, Iago? Did Michael Cassio, when you wooed my lady, know of your love? He did, from first to last. Why dost thou ask? But for a satisfaction of my thought, no further harm. Why of thy thought, Iago? I did not think that he had been acquainted with her. Oh, yes, and went between us very oft. Indeed. Indeed? Aye, indeed. What dost thou ask? Discernst thou aught in that? Is he not honest? Honest, my lord? Honest? Aye, honest. My lord, for aught I know. What dost thou think? Think, my lord? Think, my lord? By heaven, thou echoest me as if there were some monster in thy thought too hideous to be shown. So he drives Othello crazy. He doesn't actually say what he thinks. He says, honest? Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess he's honest. But what do you think? Think? I never think. It's a bad habit. I don't expect to get into it. And by then, Othello is just going nuts because he wants to know what it is that Iago is thinking. And in fact, he says, I saw you frowning and looking upset. If you love me, show me thy thought. My lord, you know I love you. I think thou dost. He thinks wrong, of course. And for I know thou art full of love and honesty, and weighest thy words before thou givest them breath. Therefore these stops of mine fright thee more, for such tricks in a false, disloyal knave are tricks of custom, but in a man that's just, they're close dilations, working from the heart, that passion cannot rule. So Othello, sometimes he's accused of being not so bright, and I don't think that's fair. Iago is just incredibly diabolically clever. And one of the things he even says is, this sort of stopping around and fooling around, if you were a dishonest person, that would be, I would suspect you of some kind of trickery, but I know you're not dishonest. I know that you can be relied on, and therefore you must have something in your mind. For Michael Cassio, I dare be sworn I think he is honest. I think so too. Men should be what they seem, or those that be not would they might seem none. Certain men should be what they seem. And of course, Iago never is what he seems. But then I think Cassio's an honest man. Nay, there's more than this. Well, men should be what they seem. He seems honest. I think he is honest. Wait, back up. Come on, I need to hear you say what you think, really. And then Iago insists, no, you can't know my thoughts. My thoughts are free. Good my lord, pardon me. Though I am bound to every act of duty, I am not bound to that all slaves are free to utter my thoughts. I say they are vile and false, as where's that palace whereunto foul things sometimes intrude not? Who has that breast so pure, but some uncleanly apprehensions keeps leets and law days, and in sessions sit with meditations lawful? You want to know what I'm thinking? Well, what if I'm thinking something gross? What if I'm thinking something vile? You don't want to hear that. Besides, I'm entitled to keep my thoughts to myself. And he pushes it. He says, no, you don't want to do this. It were not for your quiet or your good, nor for my manhood, honesty, and wisdom to let you know my thoughts. Zoons, what dost thou mean? Good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing, 'twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. So he's used both the things from Roderigo, where he said, oh, well, put money in your purse. Oh, money is nothing. Money is trash. And he's also used the thing that he got from Cassio. Oh, reputation is everything. Reputation is everything. That's stupid. On the other hand, I'll keep it as a note when I can use it later. And then he starts speaking almost hypnotically of jealousy, possibly because he knows it personally. Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. That cuckold lives in bliss, who certain of his fate loves not his wronger. But oh, what damned minutes tells he o'er, who dotes yet doubts, suspects yet strongly loves. So the worst thing about jealousy is when you don't really know, when you just suspect that somebody is cheating on you. And another element to this, which is important, is there's this whole thing about cuckoldry. And this is the first time in this course we've run across it. Cuckoldry is specifically when you sleep with a man's wife, that man is a cuckold. And it's a particular kind of shame to him. He's said to have horns on his head because he's supposed to be able to control his womenfolk. And if he can't do that, then he's less of a man, because obviously she wouldn't be wandering around if he were. So that is part of this extra shame involved of being a cuckold. And Othello says, no, I'm not going to be jealous. I'm not going to sit around being suspicious. Of course not. And he expects that he can just resolve it. He can just find out, and that's it. 'Tis not to make me jealous to say my wife is fair, feeds well, loves company, is free of speech, sings, plays, and dances well. Where virtue is, these are the more virtuous. Not from mine own weak merits will I draw the smallest fear or doubt of her revolt, for she had eyes, and chose me. Now, if you could only remember that. She had eyes and chose me. She picked me out of all the men she could have had. She picked me. And I won't suspect her. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't stay in that temper. No, Iago, I'll see before I doubt. Where I doubt, prove. And on the proof, there is no more but this, away at once with love or jealousy. Well, now that's simple. You find out that somebody's cheating on you, you just don't love them anymore. Except, unfortunately, that's not the way it works. That the emotions don't go away just because the person doesn't seem to deserve it anymore. But Iago says, great, all right, I can see that you are emotionally ready for this, so now I can tell you. And he says, look to your wife, watch her with Cassio. And the way he gets around it is he says, I know our country disposition well. In Venice, they do let God see the pranks they dare not show their husbands. You're an outsider. You don't know what Venetian women are like. Let me tell you, they can't be trusted. How is Othello going to prove this? One of the things that he says is that he's been a soldier ever since he was 7 years old, pretty much without stop until 9 months ago, when presumably he had a little bit of a respite. And that's the first time that he's actually had a chance to have a long conversation or relationship with a woman. I'm sure he's had something to do with camp followers, but actually, in a way, he's romantically very inexperienced, and he says himself that he's a little bit on the older side. You put him maybe in his 40s or something, you know, early middle age, not old, but probably much older than Desdemona's, say, 18 or 19. And he does not know what society ladies are like, and when Iago tells him, "You don't know," what can he say? He doesn't know. And also, Iago's able to use the fact that she ran away from her father. When Brabantio left, he said, you know, "Beware more, she has deceived her father, and may thee." And so Iago's able to use this. "She did deceive her father, marrying you. And when she seemed to shake and fear your looks, she loved them most. And so she did." "Ah, go to then. She that's so young could give out such a seeming to seal her father's eyes up, close as oak, he thought was witchcraft. Up, I'm not going to talk to you. No, we'll worry about it. No, excuse me, I just love you so much." And Othello finally says, no, I do but think that Desdemona's honest. Long live she so, and long live you to think so. And that just adds fat to the flames. And yet, how nature, erring from itself, you know, even good people can sometimes do things that don't fit. Now, this is where Iago almost gives himself away, because all of a sudden he starts to say the racist stuff that's in the back of his mind. There's the point, as to be bold with you, not to affect many proposed matches of her own clime, complexion, and degree, wherein too we see in all things nature tends. When they smell in such a will most rank, foul disproportions, thoughts unnatural. But pardon me, I do not in position distinctly speak of her. He almost makes the mistake of saying it's completely unnatural, it's outside of nature for Desdemona to love someone like you. And that's where he could have given himself away, but he backs off just in time. And what he says is, just keep an eye on her. Just trust me, just keep an eye on her, that's all I want you to do. And Othello is already starting to think of reasons why maybe she doesn't love him. So that must be at the back of his mind somewhere. "If I do prove her haggard, though that her jesses were my dear heartstrings, I'll whistle her off and let her down the wind to pray at fortune. Haply, for I am black, and have not those soft parts of conversation that chamberers have. Or for I am declined into the vale of years, yet that's not much. She's gone. I am abused, and my relief must be to loathe her. Oh, curse of marriage, that we can call these delicate creatures ours and not their appetites." And he's almost already convinced that she really has done all this. And that kind of makes things difficult. You'll notice that one of the big problems now is that he's thinking that she's guilty, or he's starting to think that she's guilty. And it's very difficult to prove that you're innocent. That's why in courts of law, people are innocent until proven guilty, as opposed to guilty until proven innocent, because to prove your innocence is extremely difficult to do. And yet that is what Desdemona is forced to do and cannot do as this goes on. When Desdemona comes back in with Emilia, Othello has to see her as he's seen her for a while, and says, "If she be false, oh, then heaven mocks itself. I'll not believe it. I can't believe it. You know, if she is false, there is no woman who you could possibly trust. That's ridiculous. No, I don't believe it." And then she tried, he looks like he has a headache, and of course that's a reference to the horns he's thinking about sprouting on his head. And Desdemona goes over to pat his head with her handkerchief, and he knocks it out. Now, this little handkerchief is going to cause more trouble. Sometimes Othello is called the tragedy of the handkerchief. And when he drops it, well, she's too absorbed in the fact that he seems to be cranky and unwell, and she follows him off, and she's forgotten that she dropped the handkerchief, which normally she would never do, because it was Othello's first gift to her, and it's very precious to her. And then Emilia finds it. Now, Emilia has a very hard time with her husband, who is Iago. And she has been, in fact, enjoined to steal it. She doesn't want to steal it, but she happens to find it. And maybe she wouldn't give it to him. She was really going to just have it copied. But then Iago comes in. I am glad I have found this napkin. This was her first remembrance of the Moor. My wayward husband hath 100 times wooed me to steal it, but she so loves the token, for he conjured her she should ever keep it, that she reserves it evermore about her to kiss and talk to. I'll have the work ta'en out and give it Iago. What he will do with it, heaven knows, not I. I nothing but to please his fantasy. So she's just going to have it copied for him, not actually steal it. And Iago sees that she's there, and Emilia can't resist the opportunity to do something for Iago that will make him praise her. Do not you chide, I have a thing for you. You have a thing for me. It is a common thing, to have a foolish wife. Oh, is that all? What will you give me now for that same handkerchief? What handkerchief? What handkerchief? Why, that the Moor first gave to Desdemona, that which so often you did bid me steal. Hast stolen it from her? No. Faith, she let it drop by negligence, and to the advantage I being here took it up. Look, here it is. A good wench. Give it me. What will you do with it, that you have been so earnest to have me filch it? No, what is that to you? And Emilia is already beginning to say, no, you know, if you shouldn't steal, what do you want to do with it? And Iago, so far from complimenting her, just says, go away. I need it. Now, Iago himself isn't really sure what he's going to do with this hanky. The fact that the hanky happened to come into his possession is sort of a piece of serendipity. It also is the thing that will undo him, because Emilia is going to have that handkerchief as evidence. She's going to remember the handkerchief. Everything else is all verbal stuff, and it leaves no trace. But the handkerchief does leave a trace, and therefore, if it didn't move around the way Iago said it did, then he can be exposed. Now, by the time Othello comes back, Iago thinks of this as a trifle. Trifles light as air are to the jealous confirmation strong as proof of holy writ. This may do something. Yeah, let's give it a try. And there you hear the improviser speaking. But I think there's a case that can be made for Othello seeing something different in that handkerchief than everybody else on stage. Briefly, there was an impression by the English, certainly a little bit later than this, and probably as early as Othello, that the way that the Grand Turk picked women out in the seraglio was by throwing a handkerchief at them, throwing them a handkerchief. So it's a Turkish thing. Well, actually, they were wrong about that. That's not something that he did, but that was something that they thought. So if that's true, then Othello, who's an English creation, but who has presumably this Moorish or this Turkish background, sees something different. A handkerchief's got a whole sexual connotation to him that it doesn't have to anybody else in this play. And if his wife has given away his handkerchief to some other guy, that really means something different to him, right? And that's very upsetting. Nobody else can understand it. It just turns out to be Iago's good luck at this moment that he manages to use it. When Othello comes back in, those few minutes off stage has actually gotten him to the point where he is sick. Jealousy is making him sick. And Iago says, you will never sleep as well as you have in the past. Not poppy, nor mandragora, nor all the drowsy spirits of the world shall ever medicine thee to that sweet sleep which thou owest yesterday. Ha! False to me? Well, how now, General? No more of that. Avaunt, be gone, thou hast set me on the rack. I swear 'tis better to be much abused than but to know it a little. So he's already assuming that she's guilty, but at least before he didn't know about it, he thinks. So he was happy then. What sense had I in her stolen hours of lust? I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. I slept the next night well, fed well, was free and merry. I found not Cassio's kisses on her lips. Well, they weren't there. He that is robbed, not wanting what is stolen, let him not know it, and he's not robbed at all. He in fact even says, the whole army could have slept with her if I didn't know, and it wouldn't have hurt my feelings. And now this has actually destroyed him as a soldier and as a man. Oh, now forever farewell the tranquil mind, farewell content, farewell the plumed troops and the big wars that makes ambition virtue. Oh, farewell, farewell the neighing steed and the shrill trump, the spirit-stirring drum and the ear-piercing fife, the royal banner and all quality, pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. And oh, you mortal engines whose rude throats the immortal Jove's dread clamours counterfeit, farewell, Othello's occupation's gone. So his identity as a general, which is everything he has been taken from him. And then he actually paints Iago into a corner because he says, if you can't prove it, I'm going to rip your throat out. Villain, be sure thou prove my love a whore. Be sure of it. Give me the ocular proof, or by the worth of mine eternal soul, thou hadst better be born a dog than answer my wicked wrath. Is it come to this? Make me to see it, or at the least so prove it that the probation bear no hinge or loop to hang a doubt on, or woe upon thy life. My noble lord, if thou dost slander her and torture me, never pray more. Abandon all remorse. On horror's head horrors accumulate. Do deeds to make heaven weep, all earth amazed, for nothing canst thou to damnation add greater than that. Make me to see it. Give me ocular proof. Make me actually be able to see it. Or give me some proof that's absolutely doubt-free. That's what Othello demands. And Iago's going to kind of get him over from that to circumstantial evidence, strong imputations. And that's part of it, the whole idea of evidence. Now, Iago's claiming, gee whiz, how unfair, it's not safe to be honest in this world. And Othello says, no, I don't know what to think. I think my wife is honest and think she is not. I think thou art just and think thou art not. I'll have some proof. I want to be satisfied. I want to see it. I want to see what's going on. And Iago says, all right, you want to be satisfied. Well, how do you want to be satisfied? You want to watch him? Behold her topped? Death and damnation. Oh. Now, just by suggesting that, in a sense, he's made Othello see it in his mind, with his imagination. And Iago points out, you're never going to see that. It were a tedious difficulty, I think, to bring them to that prospect. Damn them, then, if ever their mortal eyes do see him bolster more than their own. You're not going to see that. You're not going to watch him sleeping with her. That's not going to happen. But if you will take imputation and strong circumstances which lead directly to the door of truth will give you satisfaction, you might have it. So, well, I can't give you ocular proof. How's about circumstance? Well, okay, what? And the circumstantial evidence is, of course, a lie. It's that Iago slept in the same bed with Cassio, and people did sleep bundled together in beds because beds were expensive, and so that was very common. And he claims that Cassio sort of felt him up and said all these things in his sleep about Desdemona. And Othello begins to lose his temper. And then he says, the handkerchief. Did you ever see a handkerchief spotted with strawberries in your wife's hand? I gave her such a one. 'Twas my first gift. I know not that, but such a handkerchief, I am sure it was your wife's. Did I today see Cassio wipe his beard with? Now remember, this handkerchief is in Iago's pocket at the time. If it be that. Well, if it be that or any that was hers, it speaks against her with the other proofs. But to Othello, that handkerchief really means something. If that's true. Now I do see 'tis true. Look here, Iago, all my fond love thus do I blow to heaven, 'tis gone. And so he starts to call for blood. And he says, that's it, I am now dedicated to vengeance. And Iago swears to him that he will be loyal. Do not rise yet. Witness, you ever-burning lights above, you elements that clip us round about. Witness that here Iago doth give up the execution of his wit, hands, heart, to wronged Othello's service. Let him command, and to be obeyed shall be in me remorse, what bloody business ever. And Othello says, kill Cassio. All right, my friend is dead. 'Tis done at your request. But let her live. Damn her, lewd minx, oh, damn her, damn her. Well, that's a long way from perdition catch my soul, but I do love thee. And he's managed to get that all inside of one scene. Desdemona doesn't understand what changes. Othello is already dropping all these hints that Desdemona is somehow somebody who sleeps around. When he holds her hand, he starts to say, well, it's moist, which is, it's just a sign that she's in good health, but also it can be interpreted that she's lecherous. Desdemona's frantic about having lost the handkerchief. She's very upset. She's talking to Emilia. And she says, well, gee, if he were a jealous guy, this would really cause trouble. And Emilia says, well, isn't he jealous? Oh, no. Who he? I think the sun where he was born drew all such humors from him. And then Othello comes in. Yeah, give me your hand. Ooh, it's a little moist. You need to be fasting and praying, lady. And Desdemona says, well, of course, this is the hand that gave away my heart to you. All of these mysterious things don't register with Desdemona because she's not guilty. She doesn't understand it. And she also doesn't understand that she's digging her own grave every time she mentions Cassio's name. Meanwhile, Othello keeps demanding the handkerchief. In fact, he tells her a story that the handkerchief is magical. That handkerchief did an Egyptian to my mother give. She was a charmer and could almost read the thoughts of people. She told her, while she kept it, 'twould make her amiable and subdue my father entirely to her love, but if she lost it, or made a gift of it, my father's eye should hold her loathed, and his spirit should haunt after new fancies. She, dying, gave it me, and bid me, when my fate would have me wived, to give it her. I did so, and take heed on it, make it a darling like your precious eye. To lose it, or give it away, were such perdition as nothing else can match. So it's a magical handkerchief, and he's got this whole backstory, which later he's going to tell a different story, a much more straightforward story about where he got this handkerchief. So whether he's making this up or not, he may very well be. This worries Desdemona. Supposedly there's these silkworms that are all sacred, and the Sibyl wove it, and all these things. And she actually lies to him for the first time. She says, it's not lost. No, it's not lost. Well, no. I know it's not lost. I can find it. Because now she's scared of him. And Othello keeps saying, the handkerchief, I want the handkerchief. And then he gets angry. And Emilia says, this is the guy you told me wasn't jealous. Is not this man jealous? I never saw this before. Sure, there's some wonder in this handkerchief. I am most unhappy in the loss of it. 'Tis not a year or two shows us a man. They are all but stomachs, and we all but food. They eat us hungrily, and when they are full, they belch us. Now, that's Emilia much more bitter. You know, men just eat us, gobble us down like a hamburger and burp us up. You know, they've got no sense of loyalty at all. And Desdemona's very, very confused. She starts telling people about this, and Iago says, well, gee whiz, is he angry? Gosh, that's really a surprise. Desdemona, in fact, assumes, well, maybe I said something that set him off. Maybe he's really worried about his work. It must be something. So she automatically, she's always looking for reasons to get Othello off of the hook. And Emilia says, well, I hope it is something that has to do with business and not some jealousy in his head. And Desdemona says, well, I never gave him cause, but jealous souls will not be answered so. They are not forever jealous for the cause, but jealous for their jealous. It is a monster begot upon itself, born on itself. And who would know better than Emilia? Jealous people aren't jealous because you give them a reason. Jealous people are jealous because they're jealous. And there's nothing you can do about that if he's got that maggot in his brain. And in fact, she already starts to suspect these kinds of things. She already says, you know, it was some guy who must have told you, Iago, about me that made you have this kind of weird, jealous attitude. By the time Act 4 starts, Othello has already got it so firmly in his head that his wife is guilty that Iago starts to defend her. And as we see, this starts to drive him even crazier than he was. For next time, I'd like you to read Act 4 and Act 5. You should be working on your second paper now, and I'd also like you to have started working on your staging project. Now, if you have any doubts about how to do that, please contact me. I'd like you to look at the rest of the web page. There are some nice links on Othello, including a discussion with the cast and directors of the Cal Poly Othello, and I think it's very valuable to hear the point of view of some actors talking about creating these roles. So for next time, read Act 4 and Act 5, and we will deal with the conclusion of this very disturbing play.
And we're clear.